Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
A win's a win, as they say. The Leafs take that one 5-3 over the Dallas Stars. Not the most elegant win, not the most dominant win, but still fairly convincing, I would say. Fairly convincing. Not really in doubt from midway through the second onward, and the Stars maybe gave us a little bit of a scare there in the final moments, but the Leafs hold on to win 5-3. 2 goals for William Nylander, and the new look third line of Bobby McMann, Max Domi, and Nick Robertson getting another game together and delivering in another game. Each member of that line scoring tonight. Lots to talk about here on Game Over Toronto. My name is Dominic Jones, and I'm very happy to be here with you. We'll start. Let's just go through this game. Let's talk through what we saw, what we learned, what happened in this one, and then we'll get into some more of the nitty gritty. But things start off in the first period. Dallas gets a goal fairly early on, about 5 minutes in, on really, I think, the first real scoring chance of the game. There were a couple of, there's maybe an early awkward save for Joseph Woll. Joseph Woll, of course, starting in net for the Leafs. Anthony Stolarz going to be out for longer than initially expected. Kind of an unsettling trend with the Leafs this year and their injury reporting. But Woll, of course, this is his opportunity. Stolarz got the opportunity at the start of the year when Woll went down to basically steal the starting job. But Woll now getting his opportunity here to potentially reestablish himself as the starter now with Stolarz out for the next little while. But early on, about 5 minutes in, Sam Steele opens the scoring off the rush for Dallas. Kind of an awkward play for a couple of Leafs. Jake McCabe kind of gets beat by Steele coming out of the Dallas zone after setting up William Nylander chance. And then Matthews trying to play a little defense on the back end, unable to stop Steele from getting in close, and then he just goes bar down. And there we go, 1-0 Dallas. But it doesn't last long, and that's kind of the story of this game. The Leafs, whenever they went down, they bounced back quickly. 59 seconds later, Max Domi, his second of the year. His second of the year. He creates it himself with a good, causing a turnover in the neutral zone. He brings it in. Nick Robertson goes to the net, makes like it should be a passing play. Of course, Max Domi is somebody we talked about a lot early on in the season, doing a little too much passing. This time, he shoots it, he scores it, and we are tied at 1-1. Max Domi, of course, being in need of... He's another one of the guys this year who's needed to deliver a little bit more on the offensive side of things. And, last 2 games, things are looking promising. Things are looking promising for him and for Robertson. Shortly after the goal, Nylander had a tough start to this one. I know he got 2 goals, and we'll talk about the positives for Nylander, but he had a little bit of a tough start in this one. Had a couple of awkward plays, including just a giveaway that leads to a pretty good Dallas chance, but Woll coming out with an aggressive save to keep things tied up at 1. Max Pacioretty is a guy we've talked about what he brings to this team, and he definitely has, especially of late, especially since he came back from injury, has been bringing the physical side of the game. He's been bringing the grit. He's been bringing big hits, and he delivered another big hit in the Dallas zone and manages to draw a penalty. He doesn't get a penalty on the play. He draws one from Rupe Hintz, who wants a little vengeance and delivers a cross-check. So Max Pacioretty making things happen for the Leafs. Of course, if you're listening live, if you're watching live, throw some comments in the chats. We'll get to some of those as we go throughout this one. Music for Music for Al already jumping in here saying brick wall. Very true, especially later on in the game. We'll get to some more of that as we go. Definitely lots of great Joseph Woll saves to highlight in this one. But as we said, Max Pacioretty draws the penalty. Leafs go to the power play, and they've talked they talked on the broadcast about how good the Dallas penalty kill is, and boy, did we see it, because power play one did not look particularly good. Kind of some flashbacks to earlier in the season where things just weren't going right for them. The passes didn't look good. They kind of were looking like they might hold it together in the opening seconds, but Dallas gets the puck down the ice and then just stands at the blue line, doesn't let the Leafs gain the zone. Really, the power play has been up and down this year. It's been more up lately, but here a little bit of a step back. Admittedly, they only got one. Penalty's a bit imbalanced in this one. Definitely in the favor of the Stars, but that's how it goes. That's how it goes sometimes, and sometimes that's because the Leafs did more things that deserve penalties. So this was our one look at the power play. Nothing particularly special tonight, but 0 for 1, not the biggest deal, I'll say. Yeah, and just to underscore again, Nylander having a tough start to the game. He basically he gets a pass from Domi towards the end of the power play, and he's going to load up a shot, and he just loses the puck. Just loses the puck. It was unfortunate timing for him. And fortunately, though, we know now that the game is over, bounces back. Dallas definitely outplayed the Leafs in the first period. The shots tell that story. 16-4. Not quite as bad as 18-1 in the New Jersey game, but still not a great sign, not a great start for the Leafs. And I don't know, if I'm Craig Berube, I might be looking at this going, this better not be becoming a trend of the Leafs falling behind in shots in a big way. Now, they found a way to win the New Jersey game. They won this game fairly convincingly, despite being outshot. The final shot still very much tilted in favor of Dallas. But it does sort of suggest that maybe there's something a little bit concerning going on here. Now, second period begins, and less than a minute in, Evgeny Dadonov takes the lead for the Dallas Stars. Just a good shot, good play for Dallas, beats Woll. It's hard to say who could have done anything better on that. It's just a shooter beating a goalie, a good play. And Dallas is up 2-1 to very early on in the second. And they applied some pressure. It looked dicey there for a moment for the Leafs. Even Ilya Lyubushkin, remember him? Ilya Lyubushkin, former Leaf, had a couple of chances during some of these situations where Dallas was applying the pressure. They were getting some plays. They were getting some shots. But Joseph Woll was, as he did all games, standing tall. And perhaps no bigger moment when he stood tall was when Roope Hintz got a breakaway. A breakaway comes in, Woll robs him, puck goes the other way. Marner throws it down the ice up to Matthews. Matthews pass over the blue line there to William Nylander, who goes in for his own breakaway and ties the game. Beautiful play. Great play from Nylander, obviously, to score the goal. Great passes from Matthews and Marner, but really the big person in here is Joseph Woll making the save on the breakaway, because there could be a real turning point in the game. There could be a real turning point in the game if that goal goes in, if things go more in the direction, if it goes up, if the Stars are up 3-1, excuse me, that's what I'm trying to get at. I'm still excited from that game. That's why I'm losing my words a little bit here. But if the Stars go up 3-1, we might be having a very different conversation here. Instead, Nylander ties it up, and then 6 seconds later, 16 seconds later, 6 seconds later would have been impressive too, but 16 seconds later, Nick Robertson gets his goal. And this is just Nick Robertson, finally living up to some of that potential we've always seen in him. That's what we've been talking about with Robertson all year, is that he will show flashes of what he can do, and then things go completely wrong for him. And this looked like it was going to be one of those times when things went wrong for Robertson, because he comes into the zone, he brings the puck into the zone, and he nearly loses it. He nearly gets batted away by the Dallas defender, but he retrieves the puck, spins it, fires it on net, scores a goal. In the battle of the Robertson brothers, Nick goes up by 1 in this game, and the Leafs go up 3-2. That was the Leafs' first 2 shots of the period. Nylander and Robertson get the first 2 shots of the period for the Leafs. They both go in. Jake Oettinger, obviously not having a great night. As they talked about on the broadcast, he's played a lot lately, and he seemed to be tired, and I think you could feel it. And I think the Leafs, for as well as they were able to capitalize on all of their opportunities, and they deserve credit for capitalizing on those opportunities, I think they benefited from that. And if you play this game again with a rested Jake Oettinger, and the same sort of shots, the same style of play happens, the same momentum swings, it's probably not this definitive and a win for the Leafs, if it is even a win for the Leafs at all. And it wasn't even really that definitive of a win. They sealed it with an empty netter. Now, Leafs definitely have the momentum after this, leads to some good chances. Matthews gets a chance. Simon Benoit takes a penalty. Things kind of start swinging back the other way. But the third member of the new look third line, Bobby McMann, he gets a goal shortly after the penalty kill. Great assist from Nick Robertson, who caused another turnover, gets the pass over to Bobby McMann, who just has a nice, well-placed shot right over the pad of Jake Oettinger into the net. 4-2 Leafs. Things are looking pretty good. And it continues that way. Leafs get some more opportunities from Matthews, and they're staying in the game. It didn't feel as lopsided as the Devils game when it came to shots, even though it kind of was. It kind of was just as lopsided, but it didn't feel that way. They felt more in this game. I haven't had a chance to look at shot attempts. Maybe that will tell a different story. If you have that information and you're listening live, throw that in the chat. I'd be curious to see what the shot attempts looked like in this one, because the final shots definitely are, show that Dallas was, I'd say, in control of more of this game. They had more momentum at certain points, but the Leafs didn't feel out of it the way they did against New Jersey a couple of weeks ago. Funny moment towards the end of the period. Max Pacioretty hits one off the clock. I love it when that happens. It's just such a silly thing when the puck goes that high that it bounces off the scoreboard and back into play. Just a silly moment. But yeah, as I said, final shots in the second period, 25-12 for the Stars. Very, very much telling a story that Dallas probably should be winning this game if it weren't for Jake Oettinger having an off night and Joseph Woll having a very on night. And that continues into the third when Joseph Woll comes up big many, many, many times. He absolutely robs the Stars. They get a 2-on-1, and he just makes an incredible save, possibly his best save of the year. Really good, really, really good stuff from Joe Woll. I should mention Casey DeSmith starts the third, for Dallas. Leafs look to try and take advantage of the cold goalie. Never are quite able to. Again, sort of play continues. The Leafs are playing better, I think, in the third than they had in the previous two periods. They're more with Dallas, but obviously Dallas is pushing to tie the game. Score effects start to come into play, and again, the shot counter just keeps going up and up and up and up and up for the Stars. But the Leafs are still not without chances. Tavares takes a penalty. He gets called for elbowing. He didn't realize that he elbowed the guy. I think If anybody has a case for an accidental penalty, it's Tavares on this one. It's a penalty. He did elbow a guy in the face, but I definitely don't think he intended to do that. Not on this one. So he's off the ice. Steven Lorentz gets a nice shorthanded chance. I was hoping that he'd be able to score there, but the Leafs kill off the penalty. Dallas pulls the goalie. Really starts putting the pressure on. And again, Joe Woll standing tall. Wyatt Johnston was right in there, had a couple of chances where he just banging them off the pads of Woll keeping the puck out of the net. Stars do finally pull within one. Colin Blackwell, former Maple Leaf, remember him from the Tampa series, 3 years ago now? 2-3 years ago. He scores. Just some excellent passing from the Stars. Nothing Joe Woll could have done. Leafs maybe you would have liked to have seen the defenders break up those passes, but they were well-made passes. Dallas is a very good team. They pull within 1-4-3, but not a long time later, a fairly short time later is probably a better way to phrase that. William Nylander scores the empty netter, second of the night, 20th of the season. Great play by John Tavares to dive to get the puck out, and that leads to Nylander getting down the ice, getting the goal in. 5-3, final score for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Final shots, 41-19 for the Dallas Stars. Again, tells you what kind of night that Jake Ottinger was having, but also what kind of night Joseph Woll was having. Again, he's really trying to establish himself right now with Stolarz out to show that the confidence that the organization showed in him going into this year, where they have given him a contract extension. They're betting on him to be the goalie of the future. This is his opportunity to show that trust is well earned. He has a bit of an injury history of his own, so if he can make it through this time, obviously sharing the net somewhat with Dennis Hildeby or perhaps Matt Murray, but being the guy through this 4 to 6 week stretch without Anthony Stolarz, that this is his opportunity to really make a statement. And I think a game like this goes a long way to doing just that. We will move into the second period here on Game Over. A little scoreboard that we've got here at the bottom. I'm not going to be updating it tonight, having some minor technical issues with OBS, the system that we use for live streaming. So we'll just keep it saying we're in the first period, but we'll move into the second. As we do that, of course, want to remind you, make sure you are subscribed to Game Over Toronto on YouTube, as well as on your favorite podcatcher, so you can listen after the fact. If you can't tune in live, subscribe on YouTube, and subscribe to the other Game Over Toronto. So Game Over Toronto, the other Game Overs. There's ones for all the Canadian markets. Boy, that little slip there, that certainly plays into the Leafs fan narratives that all we think about is ourselves. But there's Game Overs for all the Canadian markets. Do tune into them. There's some great hockey talk happening there. And we've got GameOverNetwork.com is a sort of our landing page for all of that. So do check that out. And also check out Hyperdrive Hockey for a show that covers all things hockey, not just the NHL, but the PWHL, international hockey. Great stuff. It's a great show over there as well. So do tune into that. And again, keep throwing in questions and comments into the chat. Already got a couple in here that we will get to in the overtime period. But now that we're in the second period here, let's check in on some of the storylines that we've been monitoring throughout this season. And I think the big one is the Nick Robertson, Max Domi, and Bobby McMann, although less so Bobby McMann. But they're sort of they're having a bit of a moment here. They're having a bit of renaissance. Both of those guys have had struggles to start the year. Again, Max Domi getting just his second goal of the season. Nick Robertson was a healthy scratch for portions of the game here. And what they have done in putting the two of them together with Bobby McMann seems to be working. This was what Lauren and I were talking about on Sunday, is you try that line against Buffalo and it works pretty well. And you think, okay, that's good. It's always better that something works than it doesn't. But you do wonder if trying to get something working against Buffalo is necessarily the greatest indicator of how successful it will be. Because Buffalo, I mean, 10-game losing streak, like they're having a rough time there. It's not a great time to be a Sabres fan, and so that's not a great team. So things that might work against a team like Buffalo maybe won't work against a good team like Dallas. But here they tried that line again, and all three members scored. All three members played well. There were more chances. Max Domi had at least one more chance. Nick Robertson had another chance. And they are showing that there might be something here. Obviously, it's a little too early to jump to any sort of conclusions. We can't decide that, yes, this is our our third line for game one of the playoffs. I think if Zach were on, I think that statement might have given him an aneurysm. So I don't think we're anywhere near that. But the fact that it's showing signs of life, we're seeing good things from these players, especially players like Robertson and Domi who've struggled. McMahon's been fairly solid all year, but Robertson and Domi have both struggled to start the year. It's a positive sign, and you see it anytime those guys score. They have the biggest celebrations. Like Nylander scores, he barely celebrates. Robertson and Domi score, you're looking at their celebrations thinking, is this a playoff game? Is this a goal late in the third period of a playoff game? But hey, I'm happy for them. They're scoring for the Leafs. If they want to celebrate a little harder, I'll celebrate a little harder right there with them. Another point of note in this one, David Kampf made his return, a very welcome return, I would say, to the lineup. Early on in the game, he maybe looked a little bit slow, like he was still getting up to game speed, but that did not last. He looked very solid in this one, making some strong defensive plays in the defensive zone, doing what you expect David Kampf to do. He was being a good defensive center, and I like Connor Dewar. I think there's a place on this team for both Connor Dewar and David Kampf, but this is something that we have missed a little bit. Having a really defensively responsible forward, someone who is kind of a shutdown forward like David Kampf, has been missed. And having him back, it was nice to see. I was very happy with David's return, and hopefully that just rolls into the next few games. So a welcome return for the fourth line center, David Kampf. And he's continuing to thrive in the role that he is best in. He's not a guy that you'd look at to move up to the third line or into the top six. He is one of those guys that has a job that he does. He has a thing that he does, and he does it really well. So why would you ask him to do anything else? And so let's let David Kampf do David Kampf things, and let him be the strong presence on the fourth line that we know he can be, and that he was tonight. He was very instrumental in this game, very helpful, strong asset for the Leafs. Very welcome sight to see him back on the ice. Something else that's been going on with the Leafs, another line, obviously all the attention has been on Domi, Robertson, and McMahon, but another line that's been put together and been getting kind of a tryout here, an extended tryout, is the Matthews, Marner, Nylander line. This is something we haven't seen a lot of, a loaded up line like this. Usually you split those guys across the various lines, or you split them across two lines, putting one of them with John Tavares, usually Marner or Nylander, because they're wingers, and so then you have kind of the two-headed monster. What they've been doing instead is putting Tavares with Pacioretty and Nyes, which has been working fairly well. Obviously, Tavares got the hat trick in the last game, and here, good solid play from that line. They didn't light the world on fire, but I don't think they were a liability by any stretch. I don't think there's anything really to complain about with the Tavares line, and that allows the Matthews, Nylander, Marner line to have a go. And as I said, it was a tough start to the game for Nylander. He struggled a bit early on before finding his game kind of in the back half, and Matthews and Marner, again, they connect on the goal with Nylander, but I feel like this line is not greater than the sum of its parts. like all three of them are elite talent, and when it does come together, as it did on the Nylander goal, the first Nylander goal, it's really like amazing to see. But the rest of the time, the line has just kind of been there. It hasn't been bad. I wouldn't say it's been bad, not by any stretch of the imagination. But it hasn't wowed me the way you would think a line like that would. If you just sort of told someone, if you go back to like 2018 or something, you said, oh, they're going to play Matthews, Marner, and Nylander on a line together, you're probably thinking like, wow, that line must be unstoppable. And there are moments when they look unstoppable, but a lot of the time they felt pretty ordinary in this game. Again, not bad. I'm not saying that this line needs to be broken up right away. If anything, I think it's worth continuing to try it as we, make our way through December. I think it's absolutely worth continuing to try because the magic could be there. They just haven't found it yet. There is still hope or opportunity for this line to really be something. And I feel like if they can figure it out, if they can start clicking, it will be just an unstoppable force. And to have something like that be your lead, have something like that leading your attack going into the playoffs would be very formidable, would not be a welcome sight for the other team, whoever you may go up against. So I want them to continue to try it, in part because these other lines seem to be working. Cycling the guys through the fourth line seems to be working. As we said, the Tavares line seems to be working. The Tavares, Pacioretty, Nyes line seems to be working. And the third line, so far, 2 games in, seems to be working as well. So as long as all those other lines are working, I don't see a reason not to keep trying this one, to keep seeing if you can find a way to make it, again, that unstoppable force. But it is a little bit one of those things where you think, is it too much of a good thing? It's sort of a weird question to ask, but is there too much talent on that line? Do putting all three of them together not allow each of their individual talents to thrive the way that it does when you just have 2 of them together? And a third person on the line, like a Matthew Nyes, like a Bobby McMahon, like a Zach Hyman, if we go back in time. We'll find out. Again, I think these lines that we saw tonight likely will see fairly similar versions of that for the next couple of games as Berube sees what he's got and sees if the magic that we saw from the third line can continue. And if that line's sticking together, then you're not you're not moving Domi up to play with Matthews and Marner or anything if he's playing so well with McMahon and Robertson. Like you want to find things that work and then stick to them. Be flexible, sure, but you want to find the things that work so that come April, that's what you're rolling out there to start at the very least. And we already talked a little bit about Wool, but again, this is his opportunity. This is his chance to cement himself as the starting goalie and make a statement the same way that Anthony Stolarz did when he was down. So we'll see how that plays out through the rest of December and into January. We'll move now into the third period. Again, the little scoreboard at the bottom of the screen here. Not working tonight. Technical difficulties there, but we are moving into the third period. As we do, of course, want to remind you that we do have Game Over merch. There's Game Over merchandise. There's t-shirts. There's hats. There's hoodies. You can find them all at thegameovernetwork.com. It's great. It's a great way to support the network, which we really appreciate, both financially with money, but also in getting the word out, because you wear the shirt, people like the shirt, they say, hey, that's a cool shirt, and you say, hey, you should check out Game Over Toronto. You like the Leafs? Check out Game Over Toronto live after every Leafs game. So the GameOverNetwork.com, there's the store there. I believe the deal is still going on. Yeah, the deal is still going on. If you want to get 15% off a hoodie or a toque, you can go to the GameOverNetwork.com and use the code GOHolidays, like Game Over Holidays or Go Holidays, and get 15% off a hoodie or a toque. Game Over Toronto or Game Over Montreal, Winnipeg, Ottawa, Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver. I didn't forget anybody, did I? Any and all of them. We love it if you support any and all of us. We appreciate that. So again, thegameovernetwork.com. Use the code GOHolidays for 15% off toques and sweaters, or hoodies, I should say. I want to take a little bit of time here in the third period. Again, as we, if you've got a question or comment you want to make about this game, throw it in the chat. We'll get to it in the overtime period. Already got some comments from Hardstyle and Josh and Music for Al. I don't know why I have a hard time saying your username, Music for Al, but for whatever reason, it trips me up every time. I think you can go back to every stream that I've done where you've left a comment and I trip over your username for some reason. But throw in some questions and comments if you want to, and we'll get to them in the overtime period here. But I want to take some time here in the third to just kind of look back a little bit on the month of December, because it's been a very successful month for the Leafs. They have a winning record, 6-3. They're first in the Atlantic. This game cements that first place status. They're now a game ahead of the Florida Panthers. But it's also been a little bit of a weird month. Some of those wins haven't felt the greatest. Again, I keep harping on the New Jersey one because that was the game where, until there were about 5 minutes left in the third period when they tied it, it really felt like they deserved to lose, and it was a very frustrating game up until that point. But they did a really, they did win that game. The game against Nashville was kind of the same way, where they, played okay. Despite winning, they sort of just played okay. Same thing against Anaheim. The losses to Pittsburgh and to the Red Wings kind of hurt a little bit. Those were games that you felt like they should have won, but obviously you can't win them all. You can't win them all. So 6-3, that's a good record. Hard to argue with it. We've just passed the halfway point in the month, where it's December 18th now. Ninth anniversary of The Force Awakens being released in theaters. I had to get a Star Wars in. I had to get a Star Wars reference in. But there's still 6 more games to go in December. The Leafs do not get much in the way of a holiday break. And so I'd be really curious to know what Craig Berube, Brad Treliving, coaching staff, the management think of this month. Because again, you can't argue for the most part with the results. You're going to lose some games. 6-3 record. Very, very good. First in the Atlantic. Very, very good. Nothing is sort of wrong there, but games like this one where you get outshot 41-19, games like the New Jersey one where you get outshot, 38-14, I think was the final shots in that one. Losing to Pittsburgh, apologies to Penguins fans, that doesn't feel great either. So, I feel like there's sort of, there's lessons to take from this, ways to improve that hopefully come the new year, we're not getting outshot, getting outshot wildly, even in games we're winning. But there's also, I think, kind of the glass half full look at this as well, which is they have won some games that they probably shouldn't have. They have taken advantage of opportunities that were placed there for them. Just to go back to the New Jersey game, right? Anthony Stolarz stands on his head. He holds them in that game long enough that Pontus Holmberg can tie it up on that ridiculous, weird play, and then keeps them in the game long enough for Austin Matthews to win it in overtime. Joe Wool tonight does basically the same thing. It's not quite as goofy, but he plays so well that we come away from that game talking about great goals from Robertson, Domi, McMahon, and Nylander instead of, panicking about the fact that they didn't even crack 20 shots. They didn't crack 20 shots in that entire game. I don't think they got more than 10 shots in a period at any point in that game. But the fact that they're finding ways to win, that's what good teams do, is even when they shouldn't win, they win. They still find a way to win. And this was something that always felt like it happened to the Leafs. And now we're kind of on the other side of that. And it's interesting. It's weird as a Leafs fan to be on the other side of that. But it's kind of nice as well. It's kind of nice. You kind of welcome that feeling of, oh, we probably shouldn't have won that one, but we did. So take the 2 points, build up your lead in the standings. Don't look a gift horse in the mouth here by any stretch of the imagination. But I have to think that they're looking at some of these games and saying, okay, we got lucky with a tired goaltender on the other side, and we are lucky to have some incredible goalies on this team. Now how do we make sure we're not just winning, but winning the right way? Because it's unlikely to happen that you'll be outshot by more than 20 in 2 playoff games and come away winning both of them. That seems unlikely. I don't think the Panthers are going to let the Leafs get away with that. I don't think the Lightning, even in their somewhat diminished state, are going to allow the Leafs to do that. That seems unlikely. So take the wins, take the lessons too, and hopefully, again, as we approach the back half of the season, we're still in the first half of the season, which also bears keeping in mind. But as we approach as we inch ever closer to the playoffs, hopefully, we're not just accumulating points, but we're taking lessons and learning from them, and not in the we just lost game 1 of a playoff series kind of way that the Leafs always tend to do, where they lose game 1, say we need to learn lessons from it, and just drive all Leafs fans up the wall with that sort of commentary after all these years of lessons. All right, let's move on to overtime. Again, last call for questions and comments in the live chat about this game or anything else that's on your mind, Leafs-wise. If you've been listening this long, hopefully you've been enjoying the show. And if you want to go a step further when it comes to enjoying the show, you can support Game Over on Patreon. It's patreon.com/thegameovernetwork. There's some great rewards there, a whole bunch of different tiers. You can get involved that way. If you're enjoying the shows, that's one way to make a financial contribution. Again, patreon.com/thegameovernetwork. And there's also our crowdfunding campaign on LaRouche, which is a Quebec-based crowdfunding service that if we reach our goal of $15,000 there, it opens up opportunities for funding from the Quebec government. So it's a great service for companies based out of Quebec, which Game Over is. All right, let's go to the live chat. Got a couple of questions here. We'll start with Hardstyle dropping this question in. Thoughts on Matt Murray? Is he going to play? The answer to this question relies entirely on Dennis Hildeby. Hildeby is, of course, serving as the backup right now while Stolarz is out. He had a great game at the start of the year, then a really tough game a few games later. Then when he was called up, it didn't go great. It didn't go super poorly either, but it was it was a game where we've become accustomed this year to not worrying about the goaltending. That was a game where we were worrying about the goaltending on Sunday with Hildeby in net, and of course they managed to win. So he's 2-1 on the year and in his career. So that's a positive. But if he doesn't show signs of progress in his next start, and especially if it seems like he's regressing, then I think Matt Murray has been playing well enough with the Marlies and has, that veteran pedigree that he's earned a chance to come up and at least be the backup while one of the two guys in the tandem is down. I told this story on Sunday. I saw Matt Murray play with the Marlies last weekend. He came in after Artur Akhtamov had just a tough start, and he shut the door. He didn't allow a single goal, and in fact allowed for the Marlies to come back from being down 5-1 to win the game in overtime. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. If I'm Matt Murray and I'm doing stuff like that, if I'm then shutting out the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins as he did recently, I'm thinking I gotta be due for another look at the NHL. If that's what I'm thinking, if I'm Matt Murray, so I think Dennis Hildeby gets the next start or the start after that, whenever the next back-to-back comes along, he gets one of those games, and if it goes well, keep going with Hildeby. Let the Hildebeest run. Let him show what he can do. If it goes poorly, I think you're seriously looking at giving Matt Murray a chance. And, if it goes poorly for Matt Murray as well, then, so be it. That happens. He can go back to the Marlies and Dennis Hildeby can get a chance, or maybe Artur Akhtamov gets a look. That last one seems unlikely this year, at least. But I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued to see if Matt Murray can play his way into being the third string, as opposed to, kind of the fourth string, which he's become, which I don't think any of us were. I don't think that's what people were hoping for when he signed a couple years ago. Maybe we were expecting that, but we weren't hoping for it. Josh drops in here and says, hey, Dom, love the show. Just wanted to hear your thoughts on the Leafs' generally stunted offense. Obviously, tonight was great, and it's still early days under Berube, but I'm getting concerned. I mean, they did score 5 goals. They have, if we look back at the last few games, maybe they're a little bit less sort of fire-powered than the previous Leafs teams have been. They're not running up the score, but they are still getting it done, and that's kind of Berube's. What at least what we've been told is Berube's style. He's a little bit more on the, he's not necessarily going to win games 7-5. He'd rather win 3-2. So, is it stunted? Maybe a little bit. Maybe you'd like a little bit more from Austin Matthews. Still coming off that injury. He still hasn't quite looked himself. But, Nylander, I think with his goals tonight is what they said. He was 4th in the in league scoring, in goal scoring. Marner's still putting up numbers. Tavares playing very, very well, as we talked about on Sunday. And now with the third line potentially kind of coming alive here, 3 guys you were hoping for more offense from than we saw thus far into the season were Nick Robertson, Max Domi, and Bobby McMann. And if those guys are coming alive, I think that bodes very, very well. That will take some of the pressure off the big guys to do all the scoring. And if the pressure comes off them a little bit, maybe they'll loosen up. And maybe then we'll start to see Matthews come alive. I fully expect Austin Matthews to wind up with 40 goals this year, same as he always does. And Willie Nylander, I think, he scored 40 last year. It feels like that's, sort of the minimum expectation for him this year, the way he's been playing. So would I like to see more offense from this team? Yes. Am I concerned about it? Not yet. Because they have been finding ways to score. They have been winning. And until that stops, then I'll start to really worry about it. Am I worried about them being outshot brutally a couple times in a relatively short span here? Yes. But again, they're finding ways to score and they're winning those games, which is odd. It's odd, but it's nice. So I'm nowhere near the panic button, but I don't necessarily blame anybody for being maybe a little bit aware of where it is in the room, even if you're not thinking about pressing it anytime soon, because the wins are still coming. The wins are still coming, despite there being less offense than we're used to, than they used to get under Sheldon Keefe's style. Luke jumps in wondering about the opportunities for the goal, saying, does it have to wait until a back-to-back? Does Wool play every rested start until Stoli is back? Sort of wondering maybe we could get Hildeby in a game where he isn't the second half of a back-to-back, which traditionally is kind of a tough position to put your goalie in. Obviously the players are more tired than the players on the other team, and usually those are the games you lose. So here's the thing. I want them to develop Dennis Hildeby, and I want to see what he can do in a variety of different situations. But my priority, if I'm Craig Berube, if I'm the coaching staff, is finding out what we have for sure in Joseph Wool. So I'm putting Wool in as many games as I can, as many games that are as is reasonable to expect a starting goalie in the NHL to play, and testing him. He's the one I think we need to see more from. We need to we've only seen he's been around for a few years, so it feels like we've seen a lot of him, but we haven't actually seen that much of him. He does get hurt a lot. So we need to see if he can stay healthy, and we need to see how he does during a sustained period where he is the guy. And that way, when Anthony Stolarz comes back, you have a better sense of what you have in each guy. We saw a period, as I said, off the start of the season where we had to see what it was like when Stolarz is the guy. It went pretty good. Now we're going to see how it goes when Wool is the guy. And if it goes just as well and Anthony Stolarz comes back, he picks up where he left off, and we roll through the new year with both of these guys playing their best hockey and just carry that forward, then that bodes very, very well for the team and what they can accomplish this year. If things aren't going well for Wool, well, you want to know that as well. So I think you got to give the bulk of the starts to Wool. I think by and large you want to see him in the first half of the back-to-backs, and then Dennis Hildeby, as much as you want to know what he can be, he's not yet really in the mix to be one of the top two goalies on the Toronto Maple Leafs just yet. So he's here to get a little bit of experience and to, help the team out while they're down a goalie. But the majority of his development is going to happen at Coca-Cola Coliseum and at arenas around the American Hockey League this year. And that's why if the next start doesn't go well for him, I think he's better served going back to the AHL and letting a guy like Matt Murray come in. And, he's a veteran at this point. Matt Murray is what he is. So let him come up and, be the backup until Stolarz is ready to come back. So that's my thought on it. But, perhaps he could convince me otherwise. If somebody really, if they really want to see what they have in Hildeby at this moment, if they want to give him kind of a test of where he's at in his development, sure, take one of the back-to-backs and put him in the first half. And maybe that's a good idea to test Wool in the back half of a back-to-back as well. But thank you, everybody, for the questions. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and listening and watching here on Game Over Toronto. Leafs play next on Friday against the Buffalo Sabres. Weird sort of sandwich series with the Buffalo Sabres where they played them on Sunday, and we played the Stars today, and we play them again on Friday. Kind of interesting bit of scheduling there, but hey, is what it is. The NHL schedule is a complicated thing. So Game Over Toronto, we'll be back to talk about that game. Hope you'll join us then. If you want to keep up with me in between the shows, at DominicJ25 is the place to find me on Instagram mainly, but also on Twitter and Bluesky. I'm on both, although I usually only am posting links to this show and links to my other show. If you want to talk some Star Wars, come join us on the Star Wars Underworld podcast every week we're breaking down the new episodes of Skeleton Crew, the new Star Wars series that's airing right now. You can find Star Wars Underworld on your favorite podcast apps, as well as on YouTube. Same places you find Game Over Toronto, on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts. Make sure you're subscribing everywhere to never miss any of the content that we are producing. So that is it for this one. Thank you again, everybody, for watching and listening, and we will see you all next time.